All right, so we're going to dive right into our guest presentations tonight. Again, we're going to start with John Russel of Pacific Northwest Canna Reviews. And I'm really excited to bring him to stage. He's been so supportive of Cannabis Science Pub, from the blog posts to personal attendance to helping to boost us on social media. And if you guys haven't checked out Pacific Northwest Canna Reviews, it's a really good resource for reviews of different canna products. And there's also a really great blog. Check out the Stoner Date article. It gave me a really good chuckle. So without further ado, John Russel, please take the stage. And if you'd all warm him with a very strong welcome.
Thank you very much, Erica. Thank you, Bethany and OG Analytical, for having me today. I'm John. I'm with PNW Canna Reviews. I apologize for my voice. It's a little rough today. Today I am going to talk about the different delivery systems for dabbing, for better term, or lack of a better term. Before I do, though, there we go. Got to point that at the right spot, don't I? Before we go into those, though, I want to talk a little bit about the reason why we should be vaporizing versus smoking cannabis. I mean, smoking cannabis is great. There's medicinal value to it, but there's also some negative parts of smoking versus vaporizing. If you look at the beginning of this map, and thanks to Medical Jane for doing something so descriptive for us, right at about 285 degrees there, you see that the cannabinoids begin to vaporize. And that's where you start getting all of the medicinal benefit. THCA, CBCA, CBGA, all of those, they all vaporize at a much lower temperature than it takes to actually smoke a bowl. Moving forward, you actually see that right about 330 to 340, that's where THC, and that's your sweet spot. That's where all of the good stuff starts to really, really begin to vaporize, and you get a ton of medical benefit through the entourage effect. Moving up to about 390 to 400 degrees, that's where combustion begins, and that's where you start seeing the negative aspects of smoking. Just like smoking cigarettes, there is tar, and when we're talking about medical cannabis, we can't ignore the fact that when we smoke, there's tar, and we want to try to avoid that if you're smoking for a medicinal benefit. So, and then here at the front, you see 2,000 degrees or so. I mean, that's really hot, and that's kind of an over-exaggeration, but there's a reason if you drop your joint in your lap, you end up with a burn spot. I mean, it's hot, and we want to avoid that. So when like it mentioned earlier, BHO, dabbing, whatever form of concentrate that you're using is a more pure form of smoking, so there's more medicinal benefit involved, and it also allows you to actually vaporize at a much lower temperature than what smoking cannabis does. So here's some different vaporizing points. These are the boiling points of the THC and different cannabinoids that are out there. Again, Steep Hill Labs does all sorts of extracts. They're on the cutting edge of the research, and they've provided us with a great research when it comes to where everything vaporizes and the different levels or the different temperatures that you can reach. THCA, that's your acidic form of THC. It's before decarboxylation. There is a sedative. It's an anticonvulsant. They're using it for anti-seizure medicine. You want a much lower temperature for that. Moving down, when you come to CBD, you're looking at a much higher temperature. You saw in the first slide, 340 was around the temperature for THC and some of the other ones. Moving up to about 360 is where you'll see CBD. And then moving forward down, you see humulene, linalool, that's your sleep aid and your anti-inflammatories. Those require a little bit higher. My preferred spot when I'm using a dab pen is to set it at 395. You get everything, but it's not hot enough to over vaporize the earlier ones. Part of the problem when you start going with the hotter temperatures is that you actually vaporize and destroy the cannabinoids that vaporize at the earlier boiling points. So you play with it to find what your preferred temperature is, but 395 makes a really good starting point. And then as you see, once you get to about 450, you start getting the toxic chemicals from burning the plant, and that's what you kind of want to avoid. Okay, so before we move into how to dab, let's talk about what the state did. This is how the OLCC defines a concentrate versus an extract, and I disagree with this. I actually think that they got it backwards. And I'm pretty sure that several people will agree with me. A concentrate takes a product and concentrates it into a stronger form. That's why you see 20 to 25% CB or THC turn into 80+%. You're concentrating what you're doing. Versus an extraction, which pulls out the THC from the material. Rosin's a really good example of this. You see 55 to 60% THC rosin. What's left is plant particles. There's fats, there's wax, there's lipids that are part of the plants that come out. But you're extracting the THC, you're not concentrating it. So I think the OLCC got it backwards, but we're not here to knock them in the head. I just wanted to make sure that everybody kind of had an understanding of that. All right, so let's move into this. One of the questions on the trivia was the different street terms and what they are. Well, here is a bit more of a graphical reference. Crumble was mentioned earlier. You've got your crumbles right here. Live resin in the middle here. This is a more popular form. This is a fresh extraction where you've harvested the plant, you freeze it immediately, so it's more of a fresh, you get a lot more terpenes that are involved. Oh, I keep pulling that too far away. Sorry, guys. Up at the top, you see the CO2 oil. There's your vape pen, and that's kind of your most basic dab. It's the easiest way to do it. You go to any shop, you can buy a cartridge, you put it on a battery, and bam, you're dabbing, you're good to go. RSO is the only thing on here that is not a dab, and I borrowed this from Medical Jane again, and this is the one thing that I disagree on this. I don't think that RSO is dabbable, but I'm not the expert on this. You'll hear more from Sean Beeman about different things like that. He's the expert on that. I'm not. Not even going to talk about that. I just wanted to say I think they got it wrong. Moving on. Maybe. Okay, so before we actually go into the different delivery systems, I want to talk about the difference between single cannabinoid extracts and whole plant extractions. A lot of states with medical marijuana programs only allow for CBD only. And CBD only is great. It helps children. It's great for seizure medications. It's great for tumor medications and cancer treatments. And it's a great thing, and I'm not knocking it. But the problem with a single cannabinoid extract is that the entourage effect can't kick in. The entourage effect is something that is a lot of research is still being done on that. It's not fully understood, but what is understood is that the different compounds that are in the cannabis plant all work together. THC works with CBC because CBC actually allows you to absorb the different cannabinoids more efficiently. You have CBG, which actually helps with ocular pressure. If you're a glaucoma patient, you're looking for CBG in your flower because that actually helps more than a CBD treatment alone would. In fact, there's like 100 cannabinoids. It depends on where you look. One side will say 80, one side will say 300. So it really depends on where you're doing your research, but for the most part, what we see is that there's an average of about 125 known cannabinoids, and all of them work together. In fact, in Israel right now, they're testing a CBD-CBC sublingual for children that is showing to not only drastically reduce seizures for the typical seizure patient, but for Dravet syndrome, it's actually reducing seizures over 85%. Just by the addition of CBC to help with the CBD uptake. Finally, with the whole plant extractions, you actually get all of the terpenes, which have their own medicinal benefits. Like I mentioned before, linalool will help you sleep. Instead of going for the Ambien, go for a plant that's got some linalool in it. You'll smoke it, get some CBN2, and that'll help you sleep. It's all about having the whole plant to help you with the full benefit of having the cannabis plant. Nature gave us the medicine. We just have to use all of it. So how do we dab? Oh, I actually skipped a slide, it looks like. Oh, one of my little things won't load, I'm sorry about that. There's supposed to be a picture here of what's known as a dab straw. It's your basic form of dabbing. It's a long tube, it's got a pointed end and a hollow end at the other side. You heat one end, you dip it into your concentrate, and inhale on the other side. It's one of the easiest ways to dab that is not a cartridge. Moving beyond that, when you're actually ready to start investing some money into the dabbing utensil that you're using, there are several different styles. We've got the one in not the far end, but in the middle. That's what's known as a recycler. It'll create a little cyclone.